So since I was a little kid, I always wanted to take a car and, just cut the top off of it. At this point in time, I can't even remember a practical me saying, let's not chop the roof off that car. This starry-eyed scheme of mine has taken on a few different shapes throughout the years. I remember one of the early desires was the fuel economy aspect. Cars are lighter, so if you use a car chassis to make a truck, it's going to get better gas mileage. I used to have this drawing on my wall. I spent a couple hours one day kind of looking at different designs and what the actual dimensions would end up looking like. And it was just something to reference from time to time whenever I wanted to daydream about this truck conversion. For quite a few years, this project just remained as a picture on my wall. I thought about just buying a 64 or 65 Ranchero. V-dub caddies. I actually still really like V-dub caddies. I think it's super good gas mileage, really cool trucks. But I always end up working on some other project, and this one was always on the back burner. So things changed. I moved to Colorado. I was in Washington State before, and I really wanted to have an all-wheel drive vehicle. So, it shifted from an economy aspect to an all-year-round daily driver. I obviously saw the Mighty Car Mods guys turn the WRX into a sweet little truck. So that was very cool, but a couple things about that build really bothered me. One of which was, they had the strut bar across the rear shock towers, and unfortunately that would be right in the usable portion of the bed. The other thing is they use plexiglass for the back cab window, which for a daily driver just isn't very practical. But hey, those guys had like 2 days to build this thing, and it's still super kick-ass. So if you take a look at the Impreza wagon platform, specifically the back window, you can see there's kind of a curved, sloping back shape, which doesn't make for that great of a rear cab window. Since I was married to the idea of having a legit rear window, I decided I needed to find a different platform, and that's when I ran across this quick video.
Yeah, that's right. It's a Forester pickup hacked in half, made to look like a Baja. Don't know why you just buy a Baja from the get-go, but whatever.
Alright, so first off, I linked the full description to this video in the description. You should definitely check it out. I don't think a lot of people have seen it. But once I saw this, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to get a Forester because it had the rear window that could be easily turned into the back cab window. I also just thought the overall aesthetic of this creation was, had a lot of potential. But I thought it would be even cooler if it was a second-gen Forester. It was early 2020 when I picked up this 2007 Subaru Forester. It would have been ideal to find a vehicle that had damage just in the back portion that was going to get cut off, but that was actually pretty hard to find, so I settled on something high mileage because I was going to be cutting up a perfectly good car. So the first elephant in the room is that this Forester sits way too high, so I gotta fix that before I fix anything with a Sawzall. So to fix my elevation problems, I got Subaru Impreza front and rear struts with 1.5 inch drop coils for an Impreza and 3/8 inch strut spacers for the back. I'm first going to remove the brake and speed sensor. Alright, so here you can see the factory Forester setup, and then here's the Impreza setup. Honestly, it looks pretty similar to me. This is slightly compressed. I'm gonna have to use this top hat, and I can't remember what this thing is called. It's like, the interesting thing to me is this guy spins, this top hat does. Well, basically I need to take my spring compressors, compress these so that there's no longer any load, so I can remove this and swap the top hat and the bump stop, all that stuff over to this setup right here. Now's a pretty good time to say it. These spring compressors are super dangerous, so do this at your own risk. Also swap, different model Subaru parts at your own risk. But from what I can tell, this is a pretty common swap. So first off, I have no idea what the legit way to remove a top hat is. But how I did it was I used a socket, an Allen key, and a vice grip to get the top hat off. Now before I did that, I made sure that there was no load on the spring. I have to release the tension on these guys, so I have to do it slowly and evenly. Alright, so I got this guy assembled. This is the Forester. Let's do the bottom hole to the top, 23 3/4. And this guy right here looks like 22 1/2. So that's an 1.25 inch lower strut height. Plus the 1.5 inch drop coils should get me almost 3 inches lower. Alright. Once I got a bolt in the bottom, I went to the top side so I could install the top portion of the strut. This top bolt right here is the camber bolt. So I'm trying to think which way it goes so that I can get the most positive camber. Here I'm using a magnetic angle gauge to kind of dial in where I want the camber. Notice how I'm holding the head of the bolt and tightening the nut to keep the camber adjustment. Don't want to break my speed sensor. There, get my brake. So once I got done with the front passenger side, it was a repeat on the driver's side, plus I had to fix a broken sway bar end link. Alright, so you can kind of see the sway bar end link right here. Hopefully. It's like detached right here. Oh no, it's spinning. Should have thought that might happen. I'm going to break off the plastic piece so I can hopefully get something real to grab onto. See the bottom portion hanging right here. Well, that didn't work. Alright, well, it's in there. I was able to tighten the nuts on the sway bar end links without the balls trying to spin inside, which made for a really nice install. It's cool they did it like that. Alright, cool. If you notice here, I put a ramp under my tire, so when I lower the car, I'm not sure how low it's going to be. I want to make sure I can get my jack out from under the car. Oh yeah. Damn, son. That's a slant front end. That's awesome. I'm stoked. The other side looks like that now too, that we lowered it. Check it out. Oh yeah. I gotta do that back end. Dang, that's sick, man. I'm real excited about that. Alright, so since I'm doing the rear struts, it's a good time to take out a lot of the interior that won't come back in. That's what it looks like on the top. there's a guy who wants.
These are some 3/8 inch prefabricated spacers that are meant to fit on the top of the strut. For whatever reason, Foresters seem to sit a little bit lower in the back, and I really am not a fan of that look. So to use these spacers, first you have to tap out the studs that were in the top of the strut. Then you can add longer hardware to maintain proper thread engagement. These particular spacers are made to fit the nut inside them, so you can just screw the longer bolt to the spacer, but I didn't like how easily the nuts were spinning in the plastic spacer, so I just decided to tighten the nut and bolt to the sheet metal and then put the spacer on top. I did have to do a little bit of clearancing on the spacer counterbores so that the spacer could sit flat against the top of the strut. Cool. So like I said, I've never lowered a car before, but I think that these aftermarket camber bolts are pretty cool. You can see that this 2 right here on the bolt, it corresponds with where the high lobe side is, so it's a good reference point. And basically, this nipple thing right here makes that this smaller section fit the strut assembly hole, and then this hole right here fits the inside, like the knuckle hole. So that way it's able to not use a slot, you know, like the factory Subaru camber bolts do, where the 2 was completely away from this lobe. That would be just regular, that would be straight through pretty much. So then if I do it the opposite, or if I do it where the 2 is lined up with that mark right there, then it's, you know, as maximum camber adjustment as you can get.
In case it wasn't clear, you're pretty much forced to use a camber bolt for the rear struts because there's no slot in the upper hole on the rear strut assembly like the front.
Got a little bit extra jump in the trunk, but that's good because it's going to be a work truck, so that means I'll have a little bit of room to haul stuff with, you know? So I'm stoked. This thing's low and mean, slight rig to it. Yeah, that's about where I want it right there.
After I lowered the car, it was time to start gutting the interior.
Got one of those pop-off deals right there as well. so I finally came across a snag that I'm unsure about what to do here. You move this forward, you need to make your seat go all the way forward, and you have extremely small amount of room to get back here.
Without access to the back of the cab, it's really going to kill a lot of the functionality of the truck, so I got to figure out how to modify the seat to bend forward more.
See, there's a hole right here, and my idea is to grind down on this metal piece till it gets to that hole. Now, there's a reason I'm on the passenger side, and that's because if I mess this up, I don't mess up the driver's side at least. I'm gonna stuff some leather back there so I don't accidentally melt anything, and just see if I can grind that back so that I can get a little bit more travel out of this guy. Okay, that chunk's out. Could do a little more smoothing, but let's see if it works. Okay, it's hitting another step somewhere. I think that it's likely that there's another piece on the other side, so I think I'm gonna have to take this whole seat out and modify the other side and see if that works out. Okay, so my suspicion was correct. I got the seat out and the other side has the same exact issue, so I'm just going to do the same grinding job. Moment of truth, huh? Nice. That's awesome. So now it goes all the way to that stop. It was only going back to like right there. And now with that mod, back that far. Sweet!
Since I had the seat out already, it was a good time to clean up some of the rusty metal brackets.
Alright, so I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but now, on the passenger side, now that I made a modification, I can totally get back here and reach for stuff. So put my whole torso in it if I need to. Whereas on the other side, so right now the seat is fully forward this way, lean, and slid forward. There's no way. I guess there is a way to get my body in there, but it's very difficult because it's not as far down. And you can reach stuff, but you can see my torso is kind of cut off by the seat here.
Never letting you drift away. Keep me safe until the morning comes. Keep me closer, tight in your hands. I don't feel like I belong elsewhere. Now there's a place, and the place is here with you.
So you can see here I've removed the roof rack, which I think looks pretty sleek. I've never seen a Forester like it. I think it's going to look really clean. So if you wanted to remove that roof rack from your Forester, there's those, you can see where those blue holes were. There were studs sticking beneath the roof rack. So you can see I got a ratchet strap holding the two doors together.
To save weight, I removed the rear door latches, but I need to keep the doors together so that I can weld the seam in place. I welded in this cross support because when I cut the back of the roof off, it's it's going to lose a lot of structure, so I want to kind of add some temporary structure until I get the back of the cab welded in place.
You can also see that I got that blanket up, and that's just to protect the interior for all the welding and grinding I'm going to be doing back here. On the outside here, you can see I've ground this area to prep it to get weld. This area right here is actually plastic. I'm just going to weld it here, and then we'll deal with this issue down here if we have some problems. The other thing I did yesterday was I made this cap so that I can shave the rear door handle. How I did that was I took masking tape, taped off the area, and then you could feel behind here and kind of trace the shape out.
The top of the door didn't quite line up with where the bottom of the door lined up with the body, so I used a ratchet strap to kind of adjust that and tack it in place.
You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't? What if you fly?
Alright, so I got a lot of finish work to do, but that's basically how that'll get smoothed out. So I'm gonna put a lot of emphasis on, you know, making sure to get all the way around here on welding up the inside of this door. I have these 3/4 inch tabs, and I'm gonna kind of weld all the way around. Two on the bottom, 2 on the side, 2 on the back. So now this is thoroughly part of the structure of the car now. Unfortunately, I was filming a time lapse when this happened, so the video doesn't really show the severity, but things almost got out of hand. So this is a legit PSA. Do not use flammable blankets to stop weld sparks. The fiberglass blankets they sell like Harbor Freight are super cheap, and they might save your project or your house. Be safe out there. Okay, so if you squint, you can kind of see the truck we're going for right there. Anyway, one of the problems right there is how high that taillight is on the Forester. So you can imagine, you know, the truck bed's going almost to the top of it. So there's going to be a little bit of wraparound on the tailgate. What I'm going to do is cut our donor hatch so I can kind of visualize the tailgate and get a good look at the level I need to cut everything at.
So this is actually a second Forester hatch that I'm using because one hatch is going to go for the tailgate and the other one will be the back of the cab.
That's sort of the natural line it wants to take.
Here I'm envisioning all the modifications I need to do to turn this hatch into a tailgate, and I want to make sure to use that tailgate as optional extended space.
Alright, so I'm getting ready to cut
this and make it finally into a truck. I got the seat kind of slid all the way back and then leaned back pretty far so that it'll just be comfortable in there if I ever want to kind of chill out in there. So that's kind of the area that I want to be like the back window area. But when I cut this, I'm going to weld on the hatch, so I'm going to actually gain a little bit of space. So I'm going to go measure that extra bit of space and try to cut it right where I want it. I'll make a nice clean line all the way across. Okay, so I'm going to call that 2.5 inches. Because the hatch has a curved shape to it, you actually gain a little bit of space towards the center of it. So I'm trying to take that into account when I make my cut. For me, it's all about finding the best compromise between interior space, bed space, and overall looks. And that should be my cut. It's about right to me. So that's our line. That trim piece to here. Pretty much right on 7. Looks like this is it.
Yep. Not lifting.
Pretty much what it's gonna look like. Nice.
Alright everybody, I'm gonna end the video there. It's just getting a little bit too long. This is about half of where I wanted this video to end up, but I wanted to include a lot of the details. So thanks for sticking around. I have tons more content on this project that I just need to edit. So please like and subscribe, hit that bell if you want to keep following along with this project. I think it's pretty dang cool.